I know you think I'm joking, but there's an idea out there of teaching queer math. I'm not joking. I thought it was a joke myself. How can math be queer? Doesn't queer mean gay? I mean, isn't 2 + 2 4 no matter what? And yet, if you look, if you look just a little bit, you'll see that queering math is everywhere, and you'll find out that 2 + 2 doesn't necessarily equal 4. I've seen the most absurd explanations for this, like 2.4 + 2.4. Well, the twos round down to a 2, and the 2.4 + 2.4, that's 4.8. That rounds up to a 5. So you see, 2 + 2 can equal 5. I know that sounds crazy. That's queer math. And it's queer everything these days. And really, it has very little to do with sexuality. There's a new book on the subject called The Queering of the American Child. And yes, there are some sexual parts to it, but it's about a total destruction of norms and a total attack on society. At least that's what I think. Here to join us for the course of the next half hour is the author of the book, The Queering of the American Child, our old friend, Dr. James Lindsay, who joins us now via Skype. Dr. James, great to see you again. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, good to see you, Ezra.
Have I properly, in that nutshell, explained what queer means in terms of Marxist theory and the deep state of academia? Have I properly said it basically means smashing old norms? That could be sexual norms, but actually applies to everything. Did I get it?
Yeah, that's a very good summary. The definition of queer in queer theory, it doesn't mean gay, as it turns out. It comes from a book called Saint Foucault that was published by David Halpern in 1995. And David Halpern's very clear. The paragraph in which he defines queer, for the first time, giving it its technical definition in the academic literature, starts with the words, unlike gay identity. He then argues that gay identity is rooted in a positive fact. What that means is a truth, something real. He then says that unlike gay identity, which is rooted in a positive fact, queer, he says, need not, and this is his own words, need not be rooted in any positive truth or any stable reality. There is nothing in particular to which it necessarily refers. So what does it mean? He says it's adopting a position, which means a political position. It doesn't mean who you are. It means how you act politically. Adopting a position vis-a-vis normalcy that intrinsically opposes whatever, in his own words, whatever is considered normal, legitimate, or dominant. So anything normal, anything legitimate, and of course, this is a woke theory, so anything that they can tie to the word dominance has to be resisted on principle. Even if queer theory were to be normalized, it would have to resist itself on principle, as a matter of fact.
You know, who would think up such a thing? I mean, basically what you're saying is, I guess like the phrase critical theory. We know what the word critical means, to critique something, to criticize it, to attack it. I guess this is just an extension of critical theory to queer theory. You're celebrating, well, again, abnormalcy. And we're not necessarily using the term sexually. In statistics, you talk about the norm. And basically what queer theory is, if I'm getting you right, is it's whatever the establishment says, whatever is accepted, whatever is regarded by most people as good, attack it. And whatever is dissident and an outlier and is called deviant, support it. It's basically declaring every day opposite day. Is that, I mean, help me out here, because I'm in a really spooky place.
You're absolutely right, with one actual correction. I'm going to take you a little deeper. It's not just what everybody expects. It's not just the political norm, the social norm. That's what they would have you to believe. But even if it's normal according to what we might refer to kind of in an antiquated language as the laws of nature and nature's laws, the laws of nature themselves, that the overwhelming preponderance of a sexually reproducing species will want to engage in sexual reproductive activity, for example. In other words, most people are straight. I didn't say everybody's straight. I didn't add a judgment to this whatsoever. A bare fact that most people are straight. That has to be questioned at its fundamental reality, that in a sexually reproducing species that exhibits sexual dimorphism and sexual reproduction, that you will see that there are, on average, differences in how men and women behave, how men and women court one another, how they approach the entirety of the set of behaviors, which could go as far as homemaking, career, everything that lead into what creates a suitable partner for one another, all has to be resisted. There can be no natural explanation. There can be no scientific explanation. There can be no social expectation. All of that has to be rejected and resisted on principle. Anything that tells queer theory no has to be resisted on principle. So it has no limiting principles. It has no finish line. It has no stopping place. All it can do is critique and destroy relentlessly, because it's a Marxist theory that doesn't hold up economic capital specifically as the bourgeois property that must be abolished and transcended. It holds up the idea that some people get to consider themselves within the range of normal and other people fall outside of that range. Say if they have a mental illness or if they have some proclivity, particularly a sexual proclivity, but not always, that's outside of the range of normal. For example, bringing fetish into public at a pride parade in front of children is not widely considered normal. But for them, that expectation has to be challenged.
I guess, what you're saying there's certain natural laws. Queer theory would say challenge those. I guess that gets back to math. There's nothing more impervious to opinion than math. You can be black, you can be white, you can be smart, you can be dumb, you can be whatever. Math is math. It's not going to change. And that's one of the reasons it's such a meritocracy, is you can't have a little footnote saying, but I tried. But queer math is that. Queer math says, no, 2 + 2 doesn't necessarily have to be 4. And they're taking that to the hard sciences now too, aren't they?
Yeah, so let me remind you, where Halperin said that's not rooted in any positive fact or any stable reality, there's nothing in particular to which it must refer. When it comes to the question of 2 + 2, 2 + 2 necessarily must equal 4. There is no ambiguity on this. There is no getting around this. If we go into what the words 2 and plus and equals and 4 mean, this is an absolutely unavoidable conclusion. There's no wiggle room. There's no argument. There's no debate. However, what they would say is, there's nothing in particular to which 2 + 2 refers. It doesn't necessarily refer to 4. And then they pull all sorts of different tricks. Maybe you do it in base 3 arithmetic, in which case the symbol for 4 in base 3 is written with 2 1s. It looks like what we would call 11. As it turns out, that's still 4, even though it's written down differently. But they want to tell you that doesn't necessarily, it looks like 11, therefore it is 11, but it even though it's 11 identifying as 4. And you can't question that fact. All you can say is that it's too narrow and reductive a way of thinking. It's a constraining and oppressive way to think that 2 + 2 must equal 4. They don't say that it must equal 3 or must equal 5 or must equal 17 or 11. They say that 2 + 2 can equal, in effect, other things, and who knows what those are. And in fact, they frequently say it that way, that what the queer world looks like is out beyond a horizon of possibilities. They don't try to tell you what it looks like. It's just a potentiality out there past the horizon. That's literally the way they describe this, almost like it's a religion with the kingdom of queer God off over the horizon that we can get to eventually if we abolish all of our norms and expectations.